Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back in with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reaction series after Arsenal have won 4-0 against Standard Liege in the Europa League after our second European tie of the season. Obviously 3-0 in the first game against Frankfurt and now 4-0. I mean, the next one's going to be 5-6 if the trend is going to continue. And as I said before the season started, I was looking forward to these games, seeing our youngsters play, and it's fair to say I was right to be excited about this because we are jumping into a season now of really seeing some of our youngsters light up this competition and show their worth and possibly even put themselves in contention for the first team. But let's have a big hello to everyone in our live chat. Thank you ever so much for tuning in this evening. I can see all of you there. We got Anonymous, we got Ty, Brown, we got Dean Bevan, we got Carl Halberg. Loads of you are in here. Thank you ever so much for tuning in this evening. All here, I am sure, to talk about, well, let's be honest. There's one man that lit up this game a bit more than anyone else on the pitch, and that was, of course, Gabriel Martinelli. When I wrote the article on him before he signed, and it was just rumoured that we were interested in, watching him for Ituano and doing the research on him before crafting the article, I knew that he was someone that liked to be on the ball, liked to dribble, had confidence at a very young age. But I really didn't expect him to have this much of an impact and this much confidence coming into this Arsenal side so soon. And we're going to talk about some other players on the pitch later on. But Martinelli, for me, was absolutely fantastic. I mean, that sounds like an obvious thing to say, but his confidence, his dynamism, the way he was... I mean, the first goal, that header from someone who's not... He's not exactly well built. He's not exactly the tallest guy in the world, but he headed that in like he'd done it a million times. And I can see from plenty of your comments here, Thomas Lear, we need a Martinelli song. Carl Halberg, what a kid. How was he only 6 million? Mind blown. TRM says, we are here, let's go. Dean Bevan says, Martinelli is a true baller. Kaig says, Martinelli looks like the 72 million player. We will be talking about that in a bit, don't you worry. Ibrahim says Tini has to start against Bournemouth. Anonymous says Martinelli was on fire, but Nelson played very well too. Ashwin Watkins says Martinelli is special. I really want to see him with Alba up front. Installments FC says Torreira, Ainsley MaitlandNiles, Nelson and Pepe below par. Interesting. Yeah, definitely a different side of the spectrum in terms of talking about the game. He needs to play the next game, says Pratesh. Kaig says Mustafi, another clean sheet for the man. I'm sure he's going to get lots of tweets and he'll have to apologise for keeping another clean sheet again. Installment says brilliant scouting from Edu. Nikos is talking about how hard he worked. I think that when you score 2 goals very early on, you really want to get that third. And he was so close to getting that third goal. And actually, a lot of those chances that he missed are very much chances that a Martinelli I can see of 5 years down the line would be absolutely gulping up. But because he's still inexperienced and raw and not quite getting in the right positions, hasn't quite got that football brain to get in those positions at the right time and with the right finish, he couldn't quite get that hat-trick. But the raw talent and the raw ability from this man is brilliant. We're going to carry on. Apologies if I'm coughing and sniffing. I'm getting a little bit of a cold, I think, with this colder weather coming in here in the UK. Josh Gunners Forever says Martinelli and Tini. Let's talk about Tini then. In for his second game, another clean sheet. Yes, against a side we can say is a lesser side compared to us. But I think on the whole, he's really starting to show the quality that we need from him. I mean, his cross obviously led to Martinelli's goal, and he was up and down the left-hand flank, really looked dangerous moving forwards. His crossing was excellent with every single time he put the ball in. And compared to Kolasinac, that's certainly an area that we need. Kolasinac, I've always been critical of, because the way that he crosses the ball is usually he takes the ball too close to goal. He takes that one extra touch, and that doesn't mean he can necessarily do what he should be able to do on the ball. But Tini knows exactly how to either drive the ball across goal, chip the ball over the top like he did for one of the goals. And that is a real asset that we need. Obviously, on the other side, we saw Hector Bellerin. A quieter game. I didn't think that he did loads. I think most of the creation came from the left flank. But ultimately, he was the captain of the night for the first time. It might be the first time. I don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it is the first time I've seen Bellerin as captain. And just seeing him rush over at the end when Martinelli got kicked by that, I mean, what an idiot, that guy. What is he doing taking Martinelli out in that moment? But Bellerin just rushing and getting a yellow for his troubles. That's captain material, and we like to see that. So that's definitely a positive from his game. And ultimately, what he did, it wasn't amazing, but it was very, very solid. And I can't wait to see what he's going to do moving forwards. And obviously, in front of him will most likely be Pepe in the future seasons going forward. So those two building up a partnership as well is important. Let's see what some more of you guys are saying. Carl Halberg says, why is Emery playing our B team in the Prem and our A team in the Europa League and the Cup games? Very weird. Yeah, I tweeted out. I was like, why don't we just play this team? Why don't we just play this team in the league? It makes so much more sense. Ryan is War says, I love the spirit of the team. It's great. Wanna Pop says, Tini squared up to the guy. He did. He got that Scottish flair in the lad. Roy Copper says, now we have Bellerin and Tini. We really do have options in our wider positions. Thomas Lear says, Tierney with that Scottish fire. Soccer at 100% says Martinelli should always be coming in for Lacazette. Ishmael Alexander Rose Thompson. Wow, that's a double barrel of a double-barreled name, that is, mate. He says, Peppo definitely has quality, but he needs to play more direct. He tends to slow down the play and check back in and pass inside. I get that it's good for one-on-ones to slow down and stop and accelerate, but at the same time, he needs to be more direct. Avenite says, I don't think Ainsley MaitlandNiles was bad. His pressing game was spot on, plus covered the defence. I was actually really surprised that Unai Emery decided to field Ainsley MaitlandNiles in the midfield. He came out in an interview and said that he's simply not a defender. That isn't his position. And he was rewarded with that, with him playing in the midfield. And I don't think he did too bad at all. That clearly is a more suitable, more comfortable position for the young Englishman. And I mean, if that's what the position that he wants to try and nail down, it's really going to be a tough one with the amount of midfielders that we've got. And I certainly think that we still need to strengthen that area, causing more competition for the youngster. But I'd certainly have no issue if he wants to compete in that area. He's more comfortable there. He would have gained experience at right back, improved his defensive side of his game more than he would have done had he not have played there. And I think that will benefit him in the short to long-term future. Nick Matthews says, where do you see Martinelli's future? Right, let's do the Brazilian section. As I said, it was a Martinelli Masterclass on the day. Where do I see him? Well, every time he starts in the middle, I get plenty of tweets from people saying about, you said he wasn't he said he wasn't a centre forward. And I was like, yes, I did say he wasn't a centre forward, because he's not a centre forward. He's a striker, and there is a clear difference between what a centre forward is and what a striker is. You can look at the clear difference by seeing that Aubameyang is a striker, Lacazette is a centre forward. Aubameyang is a poacher, he gets in the ball in the right positions. But Lacazette links up play with the midfield, he returns, he goes and finds the ball, he drives it forward, interconnects play with his wide players. And for me, Martinelli is certainly the poacher. He's certainly the one to get on the end of passes, to run in behind, to create chances for himself. Whereas I don't think he can do the role where he links back. Also, if there was a recent interview with Unai Emery where Emery came out and said that specifically Martinelli is not someone that he sees in a central role moving forwards, and actually he sees him on the left or on the right. And actually, I think that's part of the reason why we saw Aubameyang come in towards the end of the game. And John in our WhatsApp group was going, why? Why is he bothering bringing on Aubameyang in this position? I actually genuinely think that he brought Aubameyang on at the end because he wanted to kind of see Martinelli on the left with Alba in the middle and Pepe on the right. Now, Saka had a fantastic performance against Frankfurt, and that obviously was rewarded with a game against Aston Villa, which in the first half he performed probably better than anyone else on the pitch on that day, and then was unfortunately taken off because of the red card to Ainsley MaitlandNiles. He played against Manchester United, again, was a lot brighter than our other winger on that day. So it's going to be hard for Martinelli to just suddenly turn around and take Saka's place. And I think it would be naive of people to turn around and say that Martinelli should go straight into the team and take Saka's place, because Saka has done nothing wrong. Saka hasn't done anything to warrant being replaced by Martinelli at this stage. What I would say is that Martinelli has maybe put himself into contention with Nelson in terms of being that substitute that comes on first. Those two are sort of vying for that position of being the impact sub at this stage in the first team. And I think Martinelli has maybe slightly edged ahead of Nelson in that role. Nelson, I thought, was decent today, couldn't get on the score sheet, but did get the assist for one of Martinelli's goals. And I think that he does just need more minutes. I think this competition in the Cups is perfect for Nelson and for Martinelli. I think that what we've got to do ultimately is not get too excited at once. If we all get all hyped about Martinelli immediately and say he's got to start, what will happen is that he'll get so much pressure and expectation put on his shoulders at such a young age that it could have the undesirable effect of putting the too much pressure, in which case we see a similar thing that's going on with Pepe and the pressure that's on the Ivorian with his price tag. and it could have a detrimental effect on his game. Now, I think that we need to continue the way that we're currently orchestrating ourselves. Martinelli is playing fantastic in these cup games, and he needs to continue getting experience in these games. Now, I'm not saying that he can't play some first team minutes in the Premier League, but I'm not saying that we should throw him straight in. We all know that Saka probably wouldn't have been thrown straight in after the Frankfurt game had it not been for Lacazette's injury. We know that we would have continued with our usual front three. But Saka did go in, and he's done really well, and he's earned that position now for himself, and fair play to the kid. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do against Bournemouth. But now we've got a scenario here where Martinelli is really putting himself in contention. So is Nelson. And we've got some real good options. We talked in the middle of the way, and I remember listening to the Arscast, and I think it was James McNicholas that brought up the fact that Pepe is really our only experienced, not in the Premier League, but he's the oldest at 24, wide player, if you think about it. Nelson, Saka, Martinelli, very, very young. Aubameyang can play that role, but he isn't. Smith Rowe, again, very young, can play wide. Pepe is our really, after selling Mkhitaryan and Iwobi, is really our only established winger in this side. The rest is going to be potential from Saka, Martinelli and Nelson. And that is a concern, but it's really important that these youngsters do step up, and it's great to see that they are stepping up. Let's see what some more of you guys have got to say. Messinelli says Professor, very good. Robin says Pepe needs time. Let's talk a little bit about Pepe. I thought, in my opinion, that he should have started this game. I think that he should have gone at the start. He's not, for me, an impact player. Pepe is not an impact player, and I'll tell you for why. Is that if you look at Nelson and Martinelli, they are explosive. They are energetic. They are all over the place. They are desperate to get on the ball. Pepe has got that. Now, I don't want to brandish him with this, but I can see reflections of Ozil's lackadaisical demeanour about Pepe sometimes. You look at the chance, I can't remember specifically, but there was one chance in the box where I believe it fell to Ceballos on the right-hand side, and he had a shot and he got blocked. But Pepe's sort of on the edge of the box, and he's walking around. And, I mean, the ball is pinging around that box. And for me, in that position there, Pepe needs to be on his toes. Pepe really needs to be sensing any sort of opportunity available to him. He was desperately trying to score. I still think he needs to work on his touch a bit more. His touch seems a little heavy. That will come with time. I think it is just confidence at this moment in time, and I'm not going to say I'm not concerned, because there is a deep down growing worry in my mind about Pepe, but that is only down to the fact that I have basically submitted myself to the fact he cost us a lot of money, and I'm concerned that he's going to turn out like other players at other clubs. Arsenal, when they spent a lot of money on players, I mean, and I'm talking about a lot, like 40 upwards, because we've seen Mustafi and Xhaka cost over 30 million, and, well, we can look and see what happens to them. But Ozil, when he came in, was decent and good, and obviously won several FA Cups, or 3 FA Cups, in fact. Aubameyang and Lacazette, I mean, you don't need to say too much about them, but Pepe is the first one that's come in at an extremely high amount of money that I've really sort of got a concern about now. Because of the money, not necessarily because I don't want to give him time, but because I think that there's that, you just don't want to be in that position where we're 6 months down the line and he's still only on a couple of goals, not really had the impact that we'd hoped he would have. So I think that maybe in the Frankfurt home game, I think maybe in the Vitoria home game, Pepe needs to get a start. He needs to get more minutes on the pitch, and hopefully the Bournemouth game will see him explode. But it's just that, that underlying concern that I have. Maybe I'm knee-jerk a bit there, but I just think that there's something there. Ajinkia says, Tom, Pepe definitely is facing some communication gap. His chemistry is lacking. We need to give him time. He has quality. I don't disagree with you there. Kay says, Martinelli is the best thing out of Brazil since Ronaldinho. I mean, there's plenty of players that would say a few things about that, mate, but I think he's certainly got a load of potential. Hersey says Pepe is not desperate to score. That's the problem. He's a bit nonchalant. Very good word to describe how his game is at the moment. Nonchalant is definitely how I would describe him. A little bit cavalier, maybe. Kofi says, I think if we want to see what Unai wants us to play like, just look at the youth and how he has them playing. Maybe our problem is the older players. It's an interesting point. You look at the likes of Xhaka, you look at the likes of maybe Socrates and David Luiz and even Kolasinac. Maybe these more experienced players have still got that ingrained issue in them that we've seen, that they're sort of too comfortable. And hopefully that these youngsters are going to start to push them, and hopefully push them to the point where they realise, well, crap, my position is under threat now, and I need to sort that out. Michael Hamilton says, hey, I'm watching you from Guyana in South America. Thank you ever so much for tuning in, Michael. Much appreciate it. Jibril says, big up Willock. Yeah, Willock got a goal again, two goals in 2 Europa League games for Willock. He just keeps on going, doesn't he? He's just full of energy, and he's got such a confidence about him and such a comfortability now that he knows that his place in this first team is for the taking, and that he knows that he is a secured man in this first team, and he can now try and fight for more consistent minutes on the pitch as a first team player. And it is really great to see another player coming through from the youth having so much success. The Sun says, no, not a youth issue. He plays a different formation with the first team. Now, the system has come into question. Tonight, it was really interesting to see sort of the system that we played, because Martinelli, yes, whilst he was a striker and he was up top, the Nelson and Ainsley MaitlandNiles sort of, not combo, but it was interesting. I mean, if I get up the formation for us on Sky Sports, they had us down playing the 4-2-3-1. So Ceballos and Torreira in a pivot, with Nelson, Willock and Maitland-Niles as a front attacking midfield three, with Martinelli ahead of them. And Maitland-Niles, we know, has not wanted to be a right back. And playing in a more advanced position, I certainly think helps him in terms of not having to rely too much on the defensive side of his game. It does mean that he'll cover a lot more as well, which is great. But I think that he's still got a lot to work upon. I don't see him as a goal threat, and for a wide player, you need that in your game, and I don't see that from him at the moment. I see him as more of a creator and more of a runner, but I think he needs to add a little bit more danger to his game. But the system itself is what the question was about. I think that the system is certainly something that needs tweaking in the first team. The 4-3-3 isn't working. Maybe we do need to switch to the 4-2-3-1. Maybe the diamond in certain instances can be effective, but only if our options up top are limited. But wide players are definitely needed, especially with Bellerin and Tini. The combination play with both of those two fullbacks is going to be a massive key feature of our season. And if we can get Bellerin and Tini firing in the first team and linking up with our wide players, there's a real opportunity for Arsenal to have some of the most quality wide attacking options in the league. And I don't think that's too far-fetched to say. Thomas Lear says Lacazette and Pepe will be exciting if they click together. They haven't really had too many opportunities to play together yet. The Fish Bro says Pepe is a lethal weapon, and when you put 3 defensive-minded midfielders behind him and pushing him central to create for himself, it is not going to get us far. We need to improve that midfield. I think that's a fantastic point. I think that the midfield is the biggest key to this team. You can look at the defence, but ultimately we can't change too much at the moment about the defence. The wing-back position or the full-back positions, I think, will sort themselves when Bellerin and Tini come back. But making the right choices with the midfield is going to be really, really important. I think that just Xhaka in there, when you look at who we had, Ceballos and Willock and Torreira are really, really sort of, they're pacey and they're dribbly and they're quick feet and they can move around the pitch very, very easily. Xhaka is sort of more clunky and likes to release the ball faster and spread the play, but I like the opportunity to see players drive at opposition. I think we've certainly got a lot of competition now in midfield, but I just think that the competition is creating a headache for Emery in terms of the system that he needs to play, and that's a big problem that the Spaniard definitely needs to work out. Kay says, Ayo, Lille robbed us though, so it works out. I don't think Lille robbed us. I think that we've certainly got someone for the future. And ultimately, we're paying at we always say 72 million, but we've only paid 25 of that so far this season. Melisma says, I think Pepe needs to bulk up as Ozil did when he came in. Darley says, Mustafi has the only clean sheets this season. I mean, bring him into the first team, maybe. Is that a question? Would you do it? Gundit News says, love the Premier League, exactly. Love EPL, exactly my point. Corey Burnside says, Xhaka slows everything down, just like Matic does. They're both trash players. Ismail says, Pepe has looked the best when we played a diamond, and that was obviously in the Liverpool game we played a diamond, and I think he did look a lot better. Ashman says, the balance was spot on for me tonight in that midfield. What bothered me was Emery moving Torreira forward when Guendouzi came on again. That's the wrong way round. Guendouzi needs to be ahead of Torreira. I think he's got this obsessive thing about Torreira that he needs to play him more advanced so that we can try and win the ball further up the pitch. Now, I get that, But you can't play that system if the player behind him is nowhere near as defensively secure. It's like playing Kante ahead of your Jorginho, who's a fantastic passer of the ball, but defensively just isn't as sound. And Chelsea were found out so many times last season because of that. You put Kante or Torreira at the base of the midfield, you give them a lot more defensive security because of who's in front of them. I think Torreira personally is better as a midfield pivot, playing in the back two. And actually today, working with Willock, I thought that did really well with Sabas as well. So, I mean, those two, the Willock and Sabas sort of interchange with each other. But I just think that ultimately I would like to see Torreira playing deeper than any of the other midfielders like Xhaka and Guendouzi and Willock and Sabas, etc. So we'll have to wait and see what Emery does with that one. We are going to round things down now and say a big thank you to everyone that's tuned in this evening. I think that in terms of what we've got an opportunity here to see some really exciting players again playing the Premier League. My advice to you as viewers and fans, and my own opinion of that, is that don't pin too many hopes on Martinelli at this stage. We don't want to override ourselves with a guy that has clearly got loads and loads of potential. And I wouldn't be pressing on him to start in the game against Bournemouth. I think that Saka has been playing really, really well. And I think that we need to see that, basically, that relationship between Saka and Aubameyang and Pepe continue. And I think that's going to be important going forwards. If you have enjoyed the show this evening, and I hope you have, please give it a like. Please subscribe if you're new around here with the notifications turned on so you never miss a show. And you can get involved in our live chat like all of these guys you can see in the chat box with us. Now, thank you so many of you for tuning in this evening. I hope you've enjoyed the game. I certainly did. We will be back tomorrow. You'll be getting an Eyes of the Opposition show with Back of the Net podcast, who is a Bournemouth-based podcast, to get their side of things ahead of the Bournemouth game on Sunday. So if you want to see that show, make sure you're subscribed and you've got those notifications turned on so you get told immediately. I should point out that a certain John and Ola predicted 4-0 for this game. So they're in the prediction league doing quite well. I need to be a little bit more on it and showing you guys the prediction league. It is there. It is happening. I'm just trying to put it together. Thank you ever so much for tuning in, people. I really, really appreciate your time. As I said, please like the show if you've enjoyed it and give it a subscription. Drop your comment. If you're watching on playback, really, really like reading through your comments. So please keep doing that too. I'll see you again very, very soon. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy the rest of your week. Great weekend coming up. Arsenal, as always. Can't wait. I'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.